So okay, comparing the integer wrapper class with an integer, it requires me that I extract the value from an object which basically encapsulates an integer. Because recall that we cannot have generic collections of primitive types. If you need the collection that behaves as a collection of integers, um, it needs to use an integer wrapper type. And in many cases, it's very easy to uh, go in and out uh, in terms of box and unbox values from this wrapper. But sometimes you need to remember which method to use to extract an integer value. In my case, I want to be comparing those values with 111. But the question is, can I remove this int or this integer instance of integer class from the collection? And the answer is no. This enhanced loop gives us references to objects stored in the collection, one at a time. And there's not much more than just to examine. You can examine the value, but it's not useful at all in terms of can attempt to manipulate the collection itself. So this will not work. We'll just leave it as is at this point. Excuse me. So next attempt would be to say maybe integer index starting at location 0. We can say for index is less than my array size, and increment index on each iteration here, and do the same thing. Try to use the same if statement. But of course, I don't have my integer, but I can obtain my integer by saying my array get an element at location index. Remember, there is a get method which returns an element, in my case an integer object, from this collection based on the index that I provide. And then I immediately can go and say, all right, give me an integer value, compare it with 111, and if the answer is yes, that it equals, then I can do something like this. Then my array delete. Is there a delete on this list? Remove, right? Remove index, and this is it. Getting rid of the object. So objects 111 should be deleted this way from the array. Let's try to print the result here. After removal of elements containing 111. Okay, so this works. This works, and I was capable of, I'm trying to make everything visible, my output included, um, was able to find all these 111 values and uh, remove them. However, this attempt to remove specific values from the collection, uh, this loop is not as simple as it seems, because upon each removal, the size of an array changes. And depending how this index changes, I can start at the beginning of the collection with index 0. I could, have other types of loops which could iterate backwards, starting at the array size -1 and then going backwards to index 0. And there are other scenarios are possible. So it's not so simple, because the size actually changes in the middle of this loop. In the middle of the loop, this size changes. The size of an array no longer is a stable value, and so it may actually complicate the algorithms. What would be desirable is that have an approach to remove elements uh, without using an index. Look at this loop. This was very simple. For instance, if I wanted to print elements, this looks very nice. I have my array. I have like temporary integer reference to an object, and I am accessing each element, looking at the value, comparing it with 111, and I can print or do something with this value. But this way I cannot remove this value from my collection, because I no longer have a position or any other position related placeholder inside this loop. So this is sort of like a read-only access. However, it was good because no index was involved. Every time you have an index, you have to compare it. You have to increment and decrement an index. You have to remember to use it properly and keep track of those positions. So the logic inside this loop could become more complicated, and therefore more bugs could be introduced simply by the presence of this variable. So there is an alternative to this. And the alternative is another version. So let's just comment this out using multiple line comment syntax, just like this, right? And have a third attempt at removing elements. Another for loop, as you might expect, but this time, and I'll go create this loop. But before I start the loop, there is this. There is a type, and I also need to import it from Java util, just like this. An iterator is a helper object which does two things. First, what it can do, and first, actually, let me save this segment.